We already covered this when Chris Tyson of the MrBeast channel announced that he had been on HRT for a couple of months after a lot of fans were questioning what the hell was going on behind the scenes. Why was Chris Tyson starting to present differently? Why was he in videos way less than he used to be? And now Chris Tyson has come out officially as a trans woman on Anthony Padilla's show. He does this podcast where it's like, I spent a day with a furry. I spent a day with whatever other freak subculture person, and does an interview with them. And this was basically Chris Tyson's coming out interview. It was like the I am Caitlyn of Chris Tyson.
It's ridiculously narcissistic.
The
culture we live in
The
now.
whole thing was questions about, like, you know, what was it like in therapy when you like decided that you were finally going to come out to your friends? And it was all questions about Chris. It was all me, and nothing about, you know, what's the situation with your family? Like, you have an ex-wife and a child who's like 3 years old. And how does this affect them? It's all about him. It's incredibly selfish and narcissistic. Let's show a couple of clips from the interview before we get into it.
All right, this is from Ollie London posted this one. It says, YouTuber Chris Tyson is creating a parody of women by putting on a woman's voice. Is he auditioning to be the new Dylan Mulvaney?
Yeah.
All right. Here he goes.
Sure.
Hey, Anthony. Congratulations on buying Smosh.
Thank
that
you.
good?
That was good. Thank
Yeah.
you. The most interesting part about seeing that is it felt like there was like a sparkle in your eye. Something about it was like I could see this feeling of you feeling like yourself.
Yeah, and I really like showing voice.
Okay.
That was probably hands down the cringiest part of the interview. Anthony Padilla asked Chris Tyson to try out his woman voice on air.
Okay.
And Anthony Padilla, like MrBeast, is part of this like OG YouTuber crowd that they were around in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. They had this like irreverent humor. They did like shock value, offensive jokes, and then they pulled up the ladder from behind them when other people wanted to do the same thing. And now it's just like an interviewer who has integrity would question or press someone on their decision making, but this whole interview was just, you know, clapping like a seal at everything Chris Tyson says and does and not questioning any of it. And also, a lot of it was like praising pharmaceutical interventions for psychological ailments, which, whether this is gender dysphoria or anxiety or depression, I think that's a dangerous path to go down or to encourage for other people. I don't think that a pharmaceutical solution is ever going to be your path to long-term happiness if you have some kind of psychological problem. And really this just smacks of like a midlife crisis, to be honest. Like,
you used to buy a sports car when you turned middle
just
age.
buy a McLaren. I know you have the money for it. Why are you going down this path? Let's watch the other clip. How about that?
Here we go.
Oh,
Oh, that actually was
because I
literally
am a woman.
oh.
She heard.
Take a moment on that. Like, how does that feel, publicly saying in front of cameras that you are a woman?
To even say it to some of the closest friends, it would make me like my hands shake to say it. I would get so nervous. But now I can say I'm a woman. I'm happy to say I'm a woman. It's something that's honestly so freeing, and I think that is part of what the HRT did for me, was being able to accept myself and being able to look in the mirror and say, yes, you are a woman.
Okay.
And this is all like revelations that Chris Tyson says he came to with his therapist, and therapy is like secular confession now, where you're just going to be affirmed rather than corrected in any of your delusions. A lot of things were revealed in this interview. One is that MrBeast has apparently known Chris Tyson is trans for 7 years now. When they were living together, Chris Tyson walked out of his room fully cross-dressing. MrBeast said, "Do you want to talk about this?" And Chris Tyson said, "No." And then they just parted ways, and it was like nothing ever happened.
Okay.
And that he also said 3 years ago he was just sitting around with all of this like MrBeast crew and said, you know, I don't want to be a man anymore, and started crying, and the rest of them were completely accepting and celebratory.
Isn't it also
Which doesn't seem like the way that guy friends talk to each other.
Does it also seem weird to anyone else that like if you felt that strongly about it, you wouldn't need the chemicals to affirm it to yourself? Maybe I'm just wrong here, but like if you actually believed it and it would be easy enough to accept, you wouldn't need drugs to accept it.
Well, he's describing this like euphoria high that he gets from being on HRT, which isn't a good sign. And that's the only thing that gave him the mental clarity to like live as his true self, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, like your son now no longer has a father, your ex-wife no longer has a husband, and you got married and had a kid at the time when you say you were fully aware that you were trans. So why did you live a lie and then involve other people in it? Like, why do other people have to participate in it?
I don't know. I don't. My main takeaway is what you said earlier about the narcissism of it, and it's like everyone else be damned. It's about me, which I don't get, especially once a kid is involved. Like that should be your life-changing moment. Like in my opinion, like once that kid is born, that is number one. Like
that's why people say like my kids are my life, and they actually mean it.
Yeah, and it's like, and that narcissism is unfortunately rampant. Like that's the one thing that I've seen from Barbie is the 2001: A Space Odyssey homage, where they literally like it's
where they destroy they crush the babies, which is an indictment on motherhood by them.
And like what they look to, the monolith is this like self-involved, like aesthetic, image conscious, consumed product that is Barbie, which is all like materialism.
And it does feel like he's like, whether it's the cultural influence of this movement and then the combination of the drugs that he's taken, like he worked himself up and made himself believe these things in a way that I don't know if I buy that, and it's not my job to question him, I guess. I think that what he's doing
if you're putting this out on a
what he did to the
platform.
child, what he did to his kid is worse than what he's doing to himself. Like, I don't care what he does to himself. I care about the fact that his kid's going to grow up without a positive role model.
I think he's using his kid as a shield for criticism. And he's like putting all of this out on a public platform, which makes it fair game for the public to talk about and have opinions about. And he posted a picture of his son crawling around with heels strapped on his feet. And like said, Tucker decided to slay today. And like, we're not supposed to criticize him for that. Like I just,
and especially in an age where it's literally like the narcissism of an interview that's literally entirely about you. Like even the most famous celebrities, it's an interview about a movie they did where it's a body of work, or a sports star, an athlete who accomplished something while performing some feat of physical, some amazing physical act, right? This is literally like, we want to reward you for being who you are, I guess. Therefore, you deserve an interview. We've done this to our own culture, right? Like you said, Caitlyn Jenner, all that came before that, we're obsessed with that in this culture because we're a narcissistic culture that we live in these days, an extremely narcissistic culture. But the problem is under normal circumstances, you're open for criticism. In this case, there's built-in armor in which you're not allowed to criticize. Granted, I guess we're doing
Anthony
that anyways.
Padilla left a pinned comment on this video and said, "We want to foster a community for inquisitive thinking, and hate will not be tolerated.
They don't want you to think.
Please
they want you to just
if
agree.
You desire to tear our guests down for identity or self-expression." So if you have any criticism for this person, shut up, basically. And it's ironic because Chris Tyson specifically has a reputation on the MrBeast channel for being one of the most off-the-wall characters that would always say offensive jokes. And it almost seems like adopting this identity is a way to shield yourself from your problematic past. One person said, if you remember back, it said Chris was most likely to say something sexist or offensive on the channel, and MrBeast should have gotten rid of him ages ago. They say that now they're stuck with him for fear of being canceled. They don't like Chris, and he's ruined the channel. If you want to look into this, Def Noodles put up a thread of tons of screenshots.
We can't share any of those on here for fear of being
we literally
banned.
Can't put them on screen because
otherwise we'd have
our channel would get censored. But
we don't want that.
Chris Tyson, for years and years and years, has posted the most offensive jokes on public platforms about race, about trans people included,
9/11,
Hitler, just you name
Islam.
It. He's probably made a joke about it. Yep. But I think now that he's adopted this marginalized identity, you're not allowed to bring up his past because you're dead naming and you're not respecting and affirming his identity as a woman who can do no wrong. It all just seems very calculated to me.
Well, and we've weaponized
and the timing of it is very convenient.
As a culture, we've now there's going to be classes taught from publicists and managers who are going to say, like, look, you did this horrible thing. My friend, it is time to pivot. It is time to pivot, and it is time to join this underrepresented group that has protections that society does not afford everyone. So you only get to play that card a couple of times, so save it for your biggest F-ups. In this case, that's not as interesting to me as it is, he just had a kid. Like, you'd think that would be enough to glean your interest and hold you and hold your attention span for a decade or so before you start going through your midlife crisis. But no.
Yeah. And he also talks about, like, growing up in North Carolina. He was, like, in this conservative social circle, grew up in a religious household where he didn't encounter any of this stuff, and the only place he did encounter these ideas was the internet. Yeah. And that can, like, accelerate someone down a self-destructive path so quickly. But yeah, I mean, people's main criticism about this was that the audience of the MrBeast channel is mostly children. And it's like, I don't know if that's going to affect it, if he's going to be doing a lot of a lot of appearances on the channel. And kids are going to see that. He's decidedly been, like, stepping back from appearing on the channel as often as he used to. Yeah. I don't know if MrBeast had anything to do with that decision. Yeah, because like that will become a huge part of the conversation anytime he appears on the channel, right? Well, it'll become about that fact. Yeah. There were some screenshots from a private conversation which ended up being faked, I think, but it was MrBeast saying, guys, we have to affirm and celebrate Chris on his coming out no matter what. That came out as fake. People have been canceled for less, blah, blah, blah. Holy crap. Between that and MrBeast's tweets or, like, supposed private messages about the sub, is MrBeast just like a fake news guy? Like, he just loves to spread fake tweets around or fake DMs? There's also a fake lawsuit, I think, too. But regardless of whether the screenshots are a real conversation or not, it's one that he has to think about. It does affect his brand that this person is now associated with him forever. And he won't be able, you can't just outrun that. I'm just saying, like, if you're a parent, make sure you know what your kids are watching, because I'm sure, I mean, I personally know people who, have never heard of MrBeast and their kids are watching these videos all the time. Oh, yeah. So pay close attention. Do you think this will end up hurting MrBeast's channel down the road? I think he's too big at this point for this to really play a huge role into it. He's gonna be fine. Yeah. Like, he just makes challenge videos and like philanthropy videos, and Chris Tyson's hardly ever on the channel anymore. I just saw something that said that Feastables, like, sold out in Europe or something like that. So his candy's doing well too. MrBeast is he's doing fine. He's not going anywhere. And plus, Chris Tyson will then later be able to parlay this into his own, he'll be able to do speaking engagements and talk at conferences and stuff like that.
that identity will be marketed and used just as he wants, and will be able to do all the things that he might have been worried he wasn't going to be able to do if the time with MrBeast had run out. He'll pivot and turn it into a career, which sounds dreadfully like I'm such a, maybe it's also my own, like, I'm such a boring person. Like, I can't imagine like a whole making a career based on my boring ass personality, but
I mean, it's not really even about MrBeast's personality. Like,
no, I'm talking about
Chris Tyson.
Chris Tyson. Like, he will pivot this and make it a whole career after MrBeast if he so chooses to do so. Speaking engagements.
Yeah. I feel so bad for the wife. Like, what do you do in that situation?
You don't do any. You feel like she's never going to trust men again.
You can't even voice your own discontent with it.
She's never going to trust men again, ever.
You're just silenced.
Also, like, there's like, it's the old trope of like, you were so bad, like you turned someone gay. It's not even you're so bad you turned someone gay. It's you're so bad you made someone trans, and that's this is gonna hurt her for a long time.
Yeah, it's not just high profile people that are in these situations. There are whole forums of women talking about, like, my husband just decided to come out as trans. What the hell am I supposed to do? Yeah, because you've like built a life with this person for decades in some cases.
It proves that no matter how much we pretend like we live in the old world, the narcissism of the current culture, it prevents you from actually committing to things the way, not everyone, but I'm saying that like you still run that risk where like, yes, I love you, we're going to build a life together. But at the end of the day, a lot of the culture is still unbelievably narcissistic, and a smart person or a kind person would understand that and just not commit. It would be alone. Would either...
Like, if you want to live purely for yourself and your own self-gratification and you want to get celebrated on the internet, at least
don't bring other people
bring a kid into the world that's going to be associated with your public persona.
This is like the thing, like, where I was talking to someone recently, is like there's people where it's like they won't commit to relationships because they don't want to be the person who screws it up because they believe that they're selfish, right? It's not you, it's me. He should have it's not you, it's me.
This is the narcissistic opposite of that.
He should have it's not you, it's me a couple of years ago before they brought the kid into this. It's unbelievably
But
cruel.
It's like, my family be damned, my reputation be damned, my business partners' reputations be damned, my mostly minor audience. Who cares about any of that? I deserve to be celebrated just for existing.
And that's because our culture wants people to believe that your actions, it's not even that your actions don't have consequences on other people. It's that what matters to you is the most important thing in the world, and what your life does to other people doesn't matter, because you deserve to be affirmed and celebrated at all points in history and all points in your life. And that's just not true.
Also, like,
that's not the real world.
It would be still weird, but at least a little bit more understandable if you were trying to actually socialize as a woman and like present as a woman. But this guy is like wearing knee socks and tennis skirts and dressing like an anime girl. Like, it's obviously a caricature that he idolized in his mind and had the hubris to actually want to live this way.
I don't know. It's just it's always kind of a dreadful sign of the times, because these people are very big in the cultural space for people that are younger, right? So it just shows you where the culture's going. I know, like, Tim will say sometimes, it's like, I think the culture becomes more conservative, Gen Z, slightly more conservative than previous generations. And I'm like, dude, like, first of all, like, they talk about, like, it's a self-correcting problem. They're not having kids. I'm like, doesn't matter. All the conservative kids in the world are still going to end up going to these 4-year colleges with the most insane people in charge of them. I take a much more black-pilled
or if
view
they're not
of these
radicalized
things.
by academia, it's that they're, consuming this content from a very young age where these things are normalized to them before you even have a chance to intervene.
And it's not going to get, I don't see it getting better anytime soon. It's a storm that everyone's going to have to weather. So thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.